Welcome back. In this video, we are going to cover Learning Target 3 and Learning Target 4, which is demonstrate how blood flows through the heart's structures. So let's get this out of the way and let's move on. Blood pathway is super important, and the different types of blood we talk about are important too, because you have deoxygenated blood, which I'm going to represent with blue. Deoxygenated. And you have oxygenated blood, which we'll represent with red. Now, I've heard so many times kids say, wait, blood's blue, right? And I just say, no, it's not. So if you've ever given blood or seen blood, you're going to notice that it is this really deep red, almost kind of maroon, purpley type color. It's not blue. And then my next question from students is always, so why are veins blue then? Well, it's because of the way that the light reflects off of your skin and your veins coming through your skin. That's what makes them blue. So don't get confused. It's okay. Everybody hears this. But oxygenated blood doesn't have oxygen. Well, it just lacks oxygen that the oxygenated blood has. So let's just start with the deoxygenated blood, and we're going to represent that with blue. Now, deoxygenated blood is going to come in through the superior vena cava into your right atrium and the inferior vena cava. And if you remember, superior vena cava above your heart brings in all the blood, and inferior below your heart. So everything from your legs, and you actually have holes right here to bring them in. So it's going to come in through here and up through here, go through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle, and it'll fill up. Now remember, this happens so fast, and the blood pumps through your heart, like all the blood in your whole body pumps through your heart every minute, pretty much. So it's going to come through, it's going to fill up, ventricles will contract, and the blood will be pushed out the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary arteries, which lead to the lungs. The blood is actually going to go to the lungs, and it's going to dump off all the carbon dioxide that it can. You'll breathe that out, and as you've breathed in oxygen, it's going to create this oxygen surplus on the outside of your blood cells. So the oxygen goes in to your red blood cells and attaches, and then it gets pumped back to your heart through the pulmonary veins. Now you're going to have little holes in here. It's going to come in through your pulmonary veins from your lungs into the left atrium. It goes through this mitral valve or bicuspid valve as it fills up, and then the ventricles will contract. It'll leave the left ventricle, out the aortic valve, up through the aorta, and to the rest of your body. So these lead to your arms and head right here, those three vessels. There's actually the descending aorta right here, which is pretty cool. So that's how blood flows through your body. It's super important. Make sure you review this multiple times. Make sure you get it in order. We'll just go through it one more time. Inferior and superior vena cava bring blood into the right atrium. Then blood flows through the right atrium into the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve. Then the ventricles contract and take the blood through the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary arteries, out to the lungs. Blood gets pushed back to the heart from the lungs in through these pulmonary veins. Blood comes in through the left atrium, goes through the mitral or bicuspid valve into the left ventricle, gets pumped out the aortic valve into the aorta and to the rest of the body, and then it just cycles back through, so it'll come back through here. Superior and inferior vena cava. All right, our next learning goal for this lecture is we've got to compare and contrast the different blood vessels in the human body. All right, so arteries are pretty cool. They are actually made of smooth muscle. And they are pretty elastic. That's pretty important to write down. They're elastic. So what'll happen is as your heart beats, it's pushing blood out, and then the arteries keep the pressure on, so they'll either dilate to release some pressure or they'll constrict to keep the pressure on. So when we're talking about adrenaline, we want more blood flow, so they'll actually dilate so that you're not restricting the blood flow. Now, as you relax, it'll start to constrict and just you'll have normal blood pressure and things like that. So if you need to run away from a bear, you might want to have enough blood going to all your muscles so you can run away. So smooth muscle is pretty elastic sometimes. Now, the next thing that happens is it goes through, so blood's coming. So arteries are anything that carry blood away from the heart. Away from the heart. Now, I've heard the common misconception that blood just, arteries carry deoxygenated blood. Well, that's not always true because you have your pulmonary arteries right here, these bad boys that carry blood away from the heart, and it's deoxygenated blood to your lungs. So you can't always say that, but the best way to remember it is arteries away. Arteries away. Away. Now, arterioles are always going to be carrying blood away as well. They're just smaller arteries, so they have the smooth muscle. It's pretty much ditto. They're just smaller, but they're, smaller arteries. Now, capillaries are super important. They're the coolest things ever. So, capillaries are everywhere. They're usually only one cell thick. One cell thick. So one cell can get through them at a time. They're everywhere, all over your whole body. So, they're right here on your finger, This is where nutrient and gas exchange happens. Nutrient and gas exchange. So what's going to happen is because of the different balances in your cells, so here there are capillaries here, there are capillaries here. Capillaries in your lungs are surrounding the alveoli. We'll talk about that later. And capillaries here are surrounding all of your cells. So let's talk about here. So let's say you have a cell membrane. Cell membrane here. Here's the membrane, lipid bilayer. Like always, that looks more like DNA, but whatever. You're going to have this high concentration of, let's say, CO2 on the inside because you've been expending a lot of energy in a high concentration of oxygen on the outside. So what's going to happen at this cell in the capillary is the oxygen is going to go through with the concentration gradient, and the carbon dioxide is going to go out. So cool. I just love that it just balances it out. So as you start working out, your capillaries are constantly, okay, I'm using more energy in my cells. I need to get rid of this carbon dioxide and bring in more oxygen. So your breathing increases, your breathing rate increases. And yeah, it's just awesome. Next, let's talk about venules. I kind of like going in order. So your venules are just smaller veins. That's what they are. Let's change this. They are just smaller veins. Small. Let me move this over here. Just going to cover up arteries right here. Now, veins are very important to getting blood back to your heart. So they carry blood towards the heart. Arteries away, veins towards, because you can't say that it's always deoxygenated blood, because what about these guys right here that are bringing blood that's oxygenated back to your left atrium? So it's bringing blood towards the heart. They also have valves. They are not muscular like the arteries are. They have valves, so the valves are going to sit, but they're going to sit this way. They're going to sit up like this. So as blood flows up through, it can't go backwards. It catches it. So your heart is actually super strong, and it keeps the pressure up in your body, in your blood vessels, so that blood just keeps going, because veins really can't give you any pressure. They just hold the blood pretty much. There's no muscle to them, but they do have valves to prevent backflow. Crazy. So cool. So venules are going to have that too. So right here is where you're going to see your venules right here. Here's your capillaries right here. Here are your arterioles. You're going to be right here on the opposite side. Arteries, veins, pretty cool stuff. So make sure you can distinguish between the two. Make sure arteries away, they are muscular. Veins go towards the heart, and they have valves. Veins have valves. Veins have valves. I always just say that. Veins have valves. And yeah, make sure you know that capillaries exchange nutrients, and it's all about this concentration balance. It's all about homeostasis of your cells and your blood. Your blood needs to have homeostasis. And yeah, that's it.